Joining us right now, CNBC senior contributor and host of the Larry Kudlow Show right here on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. is the one and only Larry Kudlow. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. Good morning. Is Condi Rice going to be the next NFL commissioner?
Oh, you think it's time? That would be, you know what, that's a brilliant move.
I think Goodell's going to be under. I mean, I think Goodell's a pretty good guy, but he's under a lot of pressure here.
Yeah.
And Condi is waiting in the wings.
Well, she's always said that is her dream job, and boy, it sure would send a message to put a woman in that job, considering the current news.
You got it. That's exactly right. I saw her. I was at the Hoover Institute as a media fellow about a month ago, and I visited her with an hour, and the NFL thing came up. It came up. So
yeah,
I know she's interested.
All right.
Okay, yeah, she's been very clear about that.
We're going to tuck that away, and if it happens, we will say Kudlow called the shot. You're calling another shot. I got to say, we often talk Bulls and Bears with you, Kudlow, but you are bullish on the GOP right now. I'm shocked at your headline suggesting the Republicans pull out a wave election here in November. This is your latest column. What's the formula for success, you think?
Well, the formula there is that I just believe that in the next couple of weeks, the GOP has to unveil a kind of broad policy agenda to let the country know, to let the voters know that if they elect Republican Senate along with the Republican House, what will the GOP do? I think they need to be a little more specific, not details. I'm not looking for a wonky, let's say a 75-page white paper, as some other presidential candidates once did unsuccessfully. But I think, on things like tax reform and health reform, for example, probably immigration reform, all manner of economic and job initiatives, I think they need to lay out 6 or 7 general points. Here's where we want to go. Here's where we want to take the country. And probably have to have some foreign policy in there because, as you can see, the polls want the U.S. to be much tougher than Obama. So my point is, if Republicans can develop an agenda, I think they have time to develop a Republican wave. And I note, interestingly, in the latest round of polls, a guy like Mitch McConnell now on the Real Clear Politics average, he's up 5 percentage points. That was pretty much of a toss-up, okay? Now, other stuff is very close, but GOP is doing very well in Alaska. They're doing very well in Louisiana. They're doing very well in Arkansas. It's still inside the 4 or 5 point error margin, but they're doing well.
I note that a couple of predictions came out. Nate Silver said 64% chance that Republicans take the Senate. Stu Rothenberg, who's a pretty astute observer of these things, says that the GOP will gain at least 7 seats in the Senate. And, he has done something different in his latest column. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Did.
He normally does not give his hunch. He said, normally I see it developing before the numbers all sort of gel, and I don't share that. This time he's sharing it, and he sees this as a Republican wave election as long as Obama's ratings stay around 40%.
Yeah, I was interested in the Rothenberg analysis. I agree with you. It's pretty interesting, pretty important stuff. Look, the pundits are the pundits, but I do think the Republican Party right now, right after Labor Day, as we go back to school and they come back in the session, I think they're in pretty good shape. And again, I'm not looking for a lengthy manifesto here. But I think they need to nationalize the election, in 4, 5, 6 particular areas.
They need to be for something, right?
That's correct. That's exactly right. Not the party of no. And I've talked to a bunch of people on the radio. I had Gingrich about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and that was his argument. He doesn't need a contract with America, but you need 5 or 6 major points. I've spoken to the senator in Rhode Island, Rob Portman. I've spoken to Senator Ron Johnson. I've spoken to Paul Ryan. They all agree. I noticed John Boehner today is giving a policy speech at the American Enterprise Institute where he's going to emphasize, 5 or 6 things. This is all good. And I think that Obama's negatives, his low approval rating is just a killer in these so-called close races. So I'm starting to think, besides South Dakota, besides Montana and West Virginia, We're looking at Louisiana swing GOP. We're looking at Arkansas swing GOP. McConnell looks increasingly comfortable in Kentucky. And you might even have a decent chance in New Hampshire now and North Carolina as well.
Well, and I think, Larry Kudlow, the important point that you're making here is, to bring it back to the football metaphor, don't just play a prevent defense. Don't play out the clock. Actually be a little bold and actually give the voters something to vote for.
I use that, and I hate to use sports analogies, but I do think that does work. And, I think that the other component here is optimism. I want boldness and I want optimism. I don't know if you guys saw this column by my friend Seth Lipsky, who was the publisher of the New York Sun, the editor. It's now defunct, but it's on the website. He wrote a brilliant column about the need for optimism, okay? Obama is the quintessential pessimist right now. Unlike 2012, when he was the optimist, he's turned pessimistic. He's made so many mistakes. And this whole foreign policy thing, in addition to a mediocre economy, the foreign policy thing has absolutely fallen apart for him. I think these things can be fixed. And I think the Republicans need to say with some clarity, here are the problems, here are the solutions, we can fix this, and it won't take all that long. Now, they still need the White House in 2016, but I think it's a message they should make in 2014. We know what to do, we will do it, and we can fix America. And I think that's really an important message.
All right, Larry Kudlow, thanks as always. Hey, by the way, you sort of floated it. Do you think the NFL should name Condi Rice? Do you think that's a good move?
I don't think I know enough whether they should.
All right.
I just think that, this, what I'm going to call elevator catastrophe, okay, with this guy Rice, is a really bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think Goodell has just got to deal with this conclusively.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, perhaps he will. Once upon a time, by the way, this is Kudlow's dark past, I was a speechwriter for his father, the late Senator Charles Goodell of New York State. So I have nothing against Roger Goodell at all, but the spotlight is on him, and I believe Condoleezza is waiting in the wings.
All right, Larry Kudlow, thank you for that. And
Thanks
we're going to float that out.